right now, and that is the motivation right now.
I ain't choose the game chose me. I'm a champion, I need some trophy.
This would definitely be a trio to be reckoned with.
LeBron James delivering AD dynamite.
Westbrook, he just doesn't stop.
I'm a champion, I need some trophy.
Welcome back to The Jump. There are a million things to love about the NBA, but one of them is that you wake up every single day knowing it's possible that by the time you go to bed, something completely shocking will have happened. Sometimes it's something merely bizarre, like, I don't know, a player throwing a bowl of soup at one of his coaches. But sometimes it is more consequential, like what happened before yesterday's draft. Shout out Swish, by the way. With the eyes of the entire league focused on Cade Cunningham and crew, the Lakers dive-bombed in with a jaw-dropper. Russell Westbrook is coming to town to join LeBron James and Anthony Davis. The deal sent Kyle Kuzma, Montrezl Harrell, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and last night's number 22 pick to the Wizards, who immediately turned it around for a separate trade. And all of that is interesting, and we're going to unpack all the details in a minute. But also, let me repeat. Russell Westbrook is joining LeBron and AD on the Lakers, an alliance that the LA Times reports was forged 2 weeks ago in a secret meeting between the three superstars at LeBron's house. According to longtime Lakers beat writer Broderick Turner, Russ told LeBron and AD in that meeting he is okay playing off the ball to allow LeBron to initiate the offense, just as he did in Houston with James Harden. And in return, LeBron and AD volunteered to shift positions if that's what turned out to be best for the team. James moving to power forward, Davis playing more often at center. It's an interesting peek into how the Lakers plan to adjust now that they have acquired one of the most unusual talents in the game. A relentlessly competitive triple-double machine, a leader off and on the court who is motivated to play well at home, but who is also playing on his fourth team in 4 seasons, in part due to his shooting issues. That last part seems of particular concern for the Lakers, who finished this past season ranked 25th in the league in three-pointers made per game. In fact, LA's lack of shooting was such an issue that when earlier in the day yesterday, the Lakers seemed to instead be working on a deal to acquire Buddy Hield from Sacramento, that was hailed as a smart move. After all, only Steph Curry sank more three-pointers last season than Hield. The floor space he opens up is significant, or well, it would have been for LA. Instead, the Lakers chose to close the deal for Westbrook, which also prompted immediate questions about Bradley Beal's future in D.C. If Russ was jumping ship, was Beal next? Wizards GM Tommy Shepard has said absolutely not. And if you look closely at this trade, you certainly can see the threads with which Shepard intends to sew together a roster tailored around Beal. KCP is one of Brad's closer friends in the league. The trade also gave the Wizards more depth and the kind of cap flexibility that frankly seemed impossible just a year ago when Washington was facing 3 more years of John Wall's Supermax. Now, whether the plan works well enough to make Beal want to stay remains to be seen, as does whether the Russell Westbrook experiment works for the Lakers. All I know for sure is it was an absolute shocker, or as we call it in the NBA, just another day. Now, to discuss a little bit more on this, we want to bring in our senior writer, host of The Low Post, Zach Lowe. Zach, how do you think that Russ fits with AD and LeBron?
So at the risk of making Mr. Measles, Moody, Mahdi mad at me up there, I don't love this for the Lakers. I would rather, so I'm looking at an alternative where I could have Dennis Schroeder re-signed, Buddy Hield, keep KCP, maybe keep my pick. I'm probably doing that instead of Russ because it helps my depth and the shooting problems are going to be real. But look, the fact is we can talk about shooting and spacing and who's going to take the last shot and all this. These guys are 3 great players, and talent and smarts and just all-out ferocity can sometimes make up for not so great spacing. And the West does not have an overwhelming favorite anymore that you look at and say, you know, that's a team that's unbeatable. You know, Kawhi's injured, Jamal Murray's injured. So it's right there for the taking. They can still do it, but I don't love the fit. I would rather like that other fit with more shooting because here's one of the great axioms of LeBron's career. If LeBron is the best shooter on the floor, you haven't done a good enough job building around LeBron. Now, they'll get shooters. They'll probably bring back some of their own free agents, but the shooting is going to reach a critical level, and in the half court, this team's going to have to prove that it can score. But like Perk is going to say, Russ is a great player. They're going to figure a lot of it out. And to me, the question is not just the spacing, because the Lakers have played in bad spacing before. It's the volume of shots Russ takes and the volume of bad long twos he takes. Is he really going to commit to playing off the ball? Is he really going to set screens and cut and all that and not just stand around the three-point arc? Because we've heard that song before and we haven't seen it play out in real time. The Lakers are going to be great either way because LeBron and AD are great. I just like that first iteration with Hield, Schroeder, KCP, etc. a little bit better than this one.
Well, can we take a moment right now and recognize Zach Lowe with the new haircut, the new look? I see you, Zach Lowe, with the little bootsy fade, man.
First thing RJ said to him also.
He got the little bootsy fade on himself, looking real fresh right now. I just want to acknowledge you to that point first, Zach. But look, listen, let me say this to you, okay? First of all, you might as well change the name, right? They're the Los Angeles Jeffersons, okay, because they're moving on up. Look, adding Russell Westbrook was huge, and that makes them the favorite to come out of the Western Conference. And in my eyes, that makes them the favorite to win the title. We keep talking about Russell Westbrook and his shot making or shot taking thing that we just keep painting this narrative about him. But he's led the league in assists 3 times throughout his career. He led the league in assists last year when he was playing with a whole bunch of G League guys. One thing that we do notice that Russell Westbrook hasn't played with a big like Anthony Davis. And if Anthony Davis can commit to playing the center position and him and Russell Westbrook is in a pick and roll, you better watch the hell out because you don't know how to stop it. Secondly, right, who did they just hire? One of our good friends, Fizdale. What did Fizdale coach LeBron at? With the Miami Heat. And who's with the Miami Heat? D. Wade and LeBron James. Are they both shooters? No. Actually, D. Wade shot like 33% from the three-point line. But they found ways to figure it out by cutting, by going to the mid-post area, by going on the low block, deep seals, things to that nature. You can surround them with shooting. Guys like J.J. Redick is going to be up in free agency. I'm pretty sure he'll take a call from LeBron James saying, hey, J.J., we need you. Sure, Bron, I'm on my way. I'm trying to win my championship. Don't you think, Zach Lowe? And you try to find a way to get rid of Dennis Schroeder, bring back some assets, right? Sign and trade. I don't know what the market value is. That's not my department. But I will say this. Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis, watch the hell out.
Zach, what do you think? I think Perk just suggested we get Mike Miller out of retirement, but I'm not sure. What do you think about the Lakers' ability to add some shooting?
Well, first of all, they better bring back all their outgoing free agents like Alex Caruso and Taylor Horton-Tucker, both of whom are going to have a lot of competition for their services. Yeah, Perk is right. They'll get some shooters to come in the minimum, but who? Some of these wings like Reggie Bullock, Alec Burks, they're going to be out of the Lakers' price range. The Lakers have no money to offer. Minimums and the tax mid-level, that's it. It might be a guy like JJ who's at the end of his career and wants a ring. But look, JJ Redick's coming off a pretty uneven season. He's got to prove that he can compete defensively at the highest level if he's going to be on the floor during the finals. The Lakers are going to be fine. All I'm saying is if I'm presented with those two scenarios, I'm taking the one with Buddy and Dennis just by a little bit over this one. But they're going to be exciting to watch, that's for sure.
And clearly, LeBron and AD want to play with Russ. I mean, that's certainly what the reporting is, so that's got to be a factor as well. I will say the same thing for the Lakers that we said about the Raptors earlier in the show. I don't think they're done yet, so let's see how things pan out over the next week. Free agency on Monday never stops in this league. Coming up, we're going to dig more into that. Ben Simmons not traded on draft night, so how long do we expect Simmons to remain with the Sixers organization? That is right here next on The Jump. Never stops. Just never stops.
Can't stop, won't stop.
UCLA, because someone dropped out. Am I remembering that correctly? Scholarship-wise?
Yeah.
There you go. And look what the man has done.
And he came off the bench.
There you go. Let's get to the Portland Trailblazers. Rumors have been swirling over the last few days about Dame Lillard to the point that he and CJ McCollum started shooting down the rumors on Twitter. And then yesterday at USA Basketball Media Availability, Dame was asked this question. I want to get the question right because it refers to his answer. He said the question was, quote, would you give back money?
About the situation as I could possibly be. And, things have just continued to come out. Oh, Dame said, he's 75-25 or something. And Dame is excited about this. Dame is going to, give back money. Like, I've seen everything and I have not said any of these things. So
can I ask if you would do that?
If I would do what?
actually give back money off of your current contract?
Why would I do that?
I don't know, but it was suggested, so I'm just asking.
No.
So you can't give back money off of your contract, but you could sit out, and then you don't get paid when you sit out. So I believe that was the origin there. It came from a True Hoop story, and that Dame actually pushed back specifically on that story on Twitter. This is a lot of round the circle ways of saying, Perk, what do you think is going on here with Dame and CJ taking all of these reports head on and addressing them? Do you think that that's a good idea for them, or do you think they should just kind of let the noise stay out there?
Well, one thing about it is that Dame been doing this since he came in the league. He's been very outspoken. He's a guy that is not afraid to go back and forth with people on Twitter, on social media. This is who Dame Dollar is. Now, my advice to Damian Lillard is now it's about time for those rumors to start to be true. He needs to speak out, because after watching Russell Westbrook get traded to the Lakers, this should be an eye-opener for Dame and say, hey, what's next for me? Again, he's 31 years of age. And I just don't see the Portland Trail Blazers getting any better. No disrespect to C.J. McCollum. And I understand that Damian Lillard, he is a guy that said he don't want to run from the grind. And he's not running, okay? Right now I'm telling him to sprint, take off as fast as he can, and go find another destination and go find somewhere where you know you could actually contend for a title and be a title favorite, a contender. So, you know, my advice to Dame is it's about that time.
Look, as much as any star in sports, Damian Lillard deserves the benefit of the doubt. If he wants to address these reports publicly and address them specifically, by the way, he should do that. He can do whatever he wants. And it was shocking for me to read, and he never struck me as the kind of player who would sit out games and take fines. Dame is a pro. He's a team player, and I think the Blazers are frankly counting on that. That's what they're banking on for Dame. Dame's going to be a pro through all of this. He's not going to tank his value and all that stuff. So, look, Dame can handle this however he wants. He's earned the benefit of the doubt. And the bottom line is, we can read every tea leaf and every tweet and every Instagram post and every anonymous source and all this. He's either going to get traded or he won't. He's either going to ask for a trade or he won't. We'll eventually find out. Let's just see it play out.
The something that's hard, though, about, quote, asking for a trade in Damian Lillard's situation is that Supermax just kicks in this year, Zach, right? I believe. So he doesn't really control where he goes. We've seen some players who have been able to say, I want to go here. And because of the value left on their contract, other teams don't want to trade for him if that guy does not want to stay with their team. They don't want to give up all those assets if the guy's just going to leave in a year. Damian Lillard has a lot of years left on his contract. I assume, Zach, that then if he did go to the Blazers with a trade request, they could deal him anywhere, including to a team that feels like they could never get a big star and is in a smaller market that right now doesn't have a lot of championship aspirations. Is that true?
They could, and certainly that's been speculated that Portland has a lot of power here and a lot of leverage here, more so than when a player's in the last year or the second to last year of his deal. But there's also the optics, right? Remember how Oklahoma City was so accommodating? Hey, Chris Paul, where do you want to go? This is Damian Lillard. Teams are rarely in the business of dealing franchise players who have done so much for the team, so much for the community, to Siberia where they don't want to go, to a losing team where they don't want to go. So yes, in theory, the Blazers have a lot of power, and I think they do have a lot of power. They do have the luxury of time. But I don't think when push comes to shove, they're just going to deal Damian Lillard wherever. I think it would require a conversation. Hey, this team X that's not very good, that's maybe in a city you don't want to be in, they're offering us way more than anybody else. What do you think? I just don't think they're just going to say, Dame, we have the power, you're going there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not presenting it as if they would just sort of angrily ship him off. And I would not call any NBA market Siberia, Zach Lowe. But I do think that it is a riskier proposition to ask for a trade if you are a player with a lot of years on your contract. Because at some point, while I know that teams do often want to do the right thing by the players that have meant so much to their franchise, there is still the reality that that general manager would like to keep his job. And that if he makes a deal where he ships off Dame and doesn't get much in return, or doesn't get as much in return as it then becomes known around the NBA, because everything becomes known around the NBA, that he could have gotten a much better deal somewhere else, that will affect that person's job security. So I do think it's a more complex thing than just Dame should go in there and ask for a trade. There's a lot of moving parts, and you wonder whether Portland wants to get into the Ben Simmons business, which is a nice segue to our next topic, Zach, because the draft came and went without a Ben Simmons trade. How long do you expect this to drag on between Simmons and the Sixers now that there has been sort of public acknowledgement that they are looking for a deal and that Ben and his agent Rich Paul are okay with them looking for a deal with another team?
Look, we know the Sixers are asking for a whole lot, whether it's players and picks. I don't think they have anything close right now. I don't think they had anything close last night. As of now, I would expect this to linger into the summer, which could get a little awkward as training camp approaches. But look, you just mentioned, Rachel, free agency is starting in like 48 hours or something.
Right.
All sorts of chaos is going to happen. We don't know who's going to go where. Things could change in 48 hours. Something could happen to a team that makes them want to get into the Ben Simmons trade. Something could happen to Philly that makes them more willing to trade Ben Simmons. But as of right now, this feels like it's going to linger for a while because I don't think they've really had any traction anywhere.
You know what? It could go for a little while, but I don't think Daryl Moore is going to let it travel into training camp. I mean, watching the James Harden situation, you don't want that effect on your team, right? Philly is still a good team. They still have Embiid. They still have Tobias Harris. And if you can move Ben Simmons and get back some valuable assets, and I'm not talking about, trying to market him like he's Wilt Chamberlain, right? Or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, because if he's that good, Rachel, you might as well keep him. But what I'm saying is you don't want that to happen, especially with the competition that you have in the East right now, because you could find yourself falling way, way down in the slots and things to that nature. You want to get off to a great start. You want your team intact. You need to make something happen, and I think Daryl Moore will. Him and Elton Brand will find the right spot for Ben Simmons and get back the right pieces before training camp.
This is going to be so interesting, and we have a weird situation where Ben Simmons might actually be more valuable to a different team than to the Sixers who have Joel Embiid, where that fit. Again, I always think if you put enough shooting around them, it works, but it is obviously proven not to work well enough to get them to an NBA Finals, and yet Ben Simmons, if he's surrounded by different personnel, may be a much better player. That is a weird sort of equation to be working on with a trade, because you're trying to say, is so-and-so worth such and such? You don't really know what he's worth to the other team until you look at their roster. It's complicated, but as you say, Zach, anything can happen in the next few days. Thank you for joining us, friend. You will be back for our free agency special on Monday. We will see you then. Your haircut, the whole nine. Coming up, we're going to talk about the Warriors draft night. Mark Spears of The Undefeated is going to join us with more. Absolutely amazing. Now joining us is senior writer from The Undefeated, Mark Spears. Mark, I would like 100 of those hoop stories. When can we expect more? Please.
Oh, man, let's bug Sharon Matthews, our great producer at Undefeated, and push for him. We obviously have an amazing cartoonist, but about 3 years ago, she had me sit and tell stories for about 2 hours. That's why my shoes were off. I was tired. And so now we're just starting to put these together, and got James Harden and hopefully more on the way. I got some perk stories, too, now. I was wondering why your toes
was doing this here, Morgan. I was like, oh, he real cozy. It was twinkling together and things.
That means I was
fantastic.
sleepy.
Shout out to Sharon and the whole group over there. Really, really excellent work. All right, while you're here, Mark, I do want to get you on the Warriors. They drafted Jonathan Kuminga with the 7th pick, Moses Moody, I'm going to say that again, Moses Moody with the 14th pick last night. When you talk to people within the organization, how did they feel after the draft?
Oh, they were ecstatic. They had Kuminga rated much higher than the 7th pick. I think a lot of other teams did too. This kid doesn't turn 19 until October 6th, but yet he succeeded in the 3rd best league in the world behind the NBA and EuroLeague. This is an 18-year-old who's athletic, who has size, who averages 16 and 7 against grown men, who played the NBA game, who shot the NBA three-pointer. So I think at a young age, he's going to be able to come in and help him. Moses Moody, I said it right, Perk. He averaged 17 and 6, SEC Freshman of the Year. Good family. I've talked to him and his parents, and he's somebody that they thought was a top 10 pick. So I think the Warriors got an A. And I know they got some people that are like, look, why didn't they trade these kids and get some veteran guys? At some point, they got to worry about the future. the same way the Spurs, went from David Robinson to Tim Duncan to Parker to Ginobili to Kawhi, I think the Warriors have now put themselves in position to do that with Wiseman and Kuminga and Moody in the future.
Well, you know what? Before I even get started on the Warriors, I would like to say this. Wherever Moses Moody is right now, I expect a paycheck when he gets his first NBA check. Because, look, I know a lot of people in the basketball world knew who he was, but everyone knows who he is now because I actually, I messed up his name.
I'm excited to have him on the jump for the first time because we're going to have him on with you, Perk. Just you wait. That's coming.
I'm just saying, Rachel, I need my piece of the pie. You know what I mean? I didn't make it go viral. Now he's a household name. But
Summer League, it's happening.
And you know what, Mark? I was going to go a different direction. But you just made me change my thought process. And you're right? At some point, they do have to think about the future. Here's the thing. I'm with you now because the way that Andrew Wiggins became into a two-way player last year just because of the culture of the Golden State Warriors, the way Draymond Green and Steph Curry embraced them with open arms, the way that Steve Kerr and that coaching staff did by challenging him to be a defender, challenging him to be a third option guy. He's not a bad third option guy. And when you look at a guy like Moses Moody, this guy right here reminds me a lot of Chris Middleton. Over 150 of his made shots in college came off of spot-up shots. That means he fits well with this offense, being able to move without the ball. So I'm with you, Spears. I was going to come on here and argue with you, but you persuade me else to think. Yeah, you did.
Well,
so
see,
I give up.
I agree with your guys' big point, but a little less with your reasoning. I think when you have Steph Curry, you don't plan for the future. I said this with LeBron James and the Cavaliers when they were trying to kind of have it both ways at the end of LeBron's second term there. I just think if you have an MVP and an exceptional, one of the best players ever in the history of the game, that is who you build around. You let the future take care of itself. Now, that being said, you can't just trade on your own. You have to have someone who wants to make a trade with you for someone good who is on Steph's timeline. So they made those picks last night, and I thought they made an excellent choice with both picks. But you can't just say, they should have traded him for someone great on Steph's timeline. There has to be a body there, and there was no body, so they made the right decision.
I'm not going to give up on Ben Simmons, too. I think that's still out there. Keep an eye on that. I wouldn't be surprised if the Warriors are still having conversations with them.
All right, well, that's a conversation for another day on whether we think Ben Simmons fits with the Warriors. But, Mark, I'm going to take you up on having that conversation at some point in the next couple of days. We have a 5-hour free agency special on Monday.
Yeah,
I have the feeling that's now going to be on the docket for producer Steve.
Yeah.
All right, we will be right back after this break with Mark Spears and Kendrick Perkins. Stick with us.
To the Jump, presented by Credit Karma.
Oh, yeah, we are live from New York. So Woj mentioned the Ben Simmons situation. Here is his tweet about it. And I thought this was interesting. He says, Clutch CEO Rich Paul and Simmons are in step with a move elsewhere. His tweet also said what you just heard him talk about, that it could be draft night or it could go into the summer. What do you make of that?
I make of it that they're having a tough time finding a trade right now that's going to satisfy the Sixers, and everyone's started to prepare themselves for what it might mean if Ben Simmons is still on the roster in September, whenever everyone reports to camp. It may be a little awkward.
Well, and it's just silly. Like, you can't just say what you've said about a player, not that the team has, but all of these things that are out there, you think you need a new spot for him. So go find a new spot for him. If the best offers are the best offers, then you got to take it.
He's going to be as valuable now to an opposing team as he will be mid-season.
You think he's going to have a better season? I'm not better, but
I think he will be better in the regular season than he was in the playoffs. Yes.
I think they could definitely change their team in a way that would make that possible. It's just a matter of, is the toothpaste too far out of the tube now?
That's a great term.
I didn't make it up.
The toothpaste out, you can't get it back in.
Can't get it back in. There you go. You got there.
I like that one.
I feel like this is like a reading.
Try it tonight. Try it tonight at home. Try and get it back in.
Hey, good look. It's in a book. The Reading Rain. LeVar Burton, he's hosting Jeopardy. Check that out.
This was supposed to be a Ben Simmons segment, but welcome to
Love
the show.
LeVar.
We'll be back in a minute.
Come on, Jordy. Love it. Do not like.
I need some of those too.
I feel we could make this into a top 10 list from a top 5. That might be a challenge for the guys for later in the week. But first, we got to get to this because, gentlemen, we are 1 week away from free agency, which means between that and the draft, it is also trade season. Ben Simmons, of course, a name that's been on the lips of a lot of front office folks around the league. In fact, Woj reporting trade talks around Simmons are expected to indeed heat up this week. So, Tim, what is the best situation for Ben Simmons? And on the flip side, your old friend Daryl Morey, in terms of the Sixers, what they want to get out of this.
The situation, the scenario that's always made sense for me is some sort of C.J. McCollum for Ben Simmons framework. And they can argue about, who has to throw in what. But I think C.J. McCollum would give the Sixers that scoring, kind of secondary playmaking guard who could really help Joel Embiid. And I want to see Ben Simmons in more of a Draymond Green role. Stop putting him in a position where he's the primary playmaker, where he's the point guard. Let him be that secondary playmaker, that power forward with Dame Lillard, an elite, obviously deep-range shooter, pick-and-roll player, great leader that I think could help get his confidence up. Of course, the problem there is how much longer is Dame Lillard going to be in Portland?
Mark?
Well, David Fredman, I don't know if you guys know him, a longtime NBA executive, told me once, he'd never get too high or too low about how somebody plays in the postseason. I think Ben Simmons is still a great player, will be a great player. He's in Los Angeles right now, working with a Clutch Sports appointed shooting coach. Here in the Sixers are getting a shooting coach as well. He's in good mental spirits, working on his game in L.A. He didn't get a lot of time with Doc Rivers. There was no training camp, pandemic shortened season. Just throw
that in there, too.
I think you got to run it back with Doc. I know Doc likes him a lot. And see what happens the second time around. I think they need more time together.
Doc didn't like him too much in his post-game press conference when they got eliminated. And Joel Embiid did not exactly indicate some eagerness to run it back.
In terms of Embiid, you don't hate on your teammate, man. I don't like that.
But he did, and it's his franchise, and we've got to recognize those as realities. Is
that the kind of leader you want to play with, though?
Listen, I'm
teammates' legs out when he has a bad series.
We can discuss blame, but I just think that it is in the best interest of all parties for Ben Simmons to be playing elsewhere sooner than later. And whether a deal that makes sense materializes now or during the season, I would be surprised if he's a Philadelphia 76er next postseason.
Okay, but that begs the question then, Tim, and I don't disagree with you that, hey, it might be nice to get that clean palette, but at what cost, right? Because Mark's right. The playoff performance Ben had, it left a taste in enough people's mouths that it's a little bit of a sell low situation. And if you're a franchise, you don't want to be in a sell low situation. So, Mark, how would you balance those things? How would you balance the idea of getting a fresh start with your team right from the beginning of training camp, if you do bring in someone else for Ben, having Ben out of there, having this new person in there, being able to work the whole season and get him cohesion for the playoffs, versus the fact that you will just probably not get the value for Ben Simmons this week that you would 3 or 4 months into the season when people have gotten the chance to see him work again and succeed the way he did during the regular season last year.
Yeah, no, the Sixers haven't had enough time to take a deep breath and really see if this is something they want to do and not make an emotional decision. I'm sure there's a lot of teams that would love to have Ben Simmons and give that maybe Ben feels like it's time for me to go and try something new. But I think people need to just calm down. I mean, this dude is still a pretty great player. He had a bad series. Have some patience with it. That's just me. I don't know. Maybe I'm an optimist.
And we're back to panic or patience again. Here's the thing. And you don't want to sell for pennies on the dollar. You do need to get star value in return. And you can't, it's not about picks because you're trying to capitalize on Joel Embiid's prime, but you can't be too patient when you have Joel Embiid, one of the top 3, 5, make that argument, whatever, players in the NBA in his prime. You've got a window you've got to capitalize on. And I just think they've reached their peak with Ben Simmons as his co-star.
It'll be very interesting to see not only what move they make, but when they do it. Tim, thank you so much for joining us today. You will be all over ESPN's NBA coverage all week with the draft and free agency coming up because there's like 6 teams that you are in charge of coverage for our NBA group. So thank you for your time today, and we'll see you not too long from now.
Always a pleasure.
All right, everyone else stick with us. DeMar DeRozan says it's all about this year. Donovan Mitchell.
Shot. The defense was really good.
Donovan, behind the back.
He was so much fun to watch in the bubble. And then, of course, carry top.